All right. Yes, we have done it. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hi, Cindy. Good to see your face.
Nice to see you.
Hi, Barbara. Hi, V. All right. All right, y'all. You know how I like to give people a minute, and also I don't, we try and get a lot packed in an hour. So I'm going to hop in and people can just come on as they come on, because that's what has to happen. So welcome to week 3. So I'm going to say this at the beginning and then I'm going to say it again at the end. Next week, we will not have class. We will skip a week because I'm at a speaking engagement. So just so you know, I'll say it again at the end too, because I think, people need to hear it several times, and it'll go out in the email and all of the things. But all right, are we ready to continue our journey into the 5 elements? Let's see, today is a technological miracle if everything goes well. So we'll be doing a demo, and hopefully I'll be able to get my Genius to do what it's supposed to do. I did all of my pre-checking and it seems to be working. So we're gonna start though with our slideshow, and we're gonna hop right in. No, I can't get to. I want. There. All right. Okay, here we go. So we have been talking about, just a quick recap. The last class, we really talked about the flow cycle and the control cycle. And so this week, we're going to look at what that looks like in action. And we're going to kind of go through the elements a little bit, and then we're going to show you how to apply this info to your Genius. So let's just start with going back and looking at the elements. So the red element, or this orangey element, is fire, earth, metal, water, and wood, right? And so last time we talked about there's a cyclical nature in the elements, and that is the flow cycle. And then there is this, what we call the control cycle, the cycle that keeps everything, there's tension enough to keep balance, right? And so in that cycle, we watch how water can control fire, how fire controls metal, metal controls wood, wood controls earth, and earth controls water, right? So, and then we looked at, I don't know if I kept that slide. Yeah. So then we looked at like emotions, like the basic emotions that are associated. Today, we're going to talk about a lot more emotions, but this is kind of like when you look at the quick overview, the basic emotions that are associated are fear with water, anger with wood, anxiety or stress with fire, worry or doubt with earth, and grief, also guilt, shame, blame, with metal. Yeah. And so we're going to be looking at today, again, we've got this, like we talked about last time, we can see that there's a cyclical nature, and then we can see this relationship around the control cycle, right? So we won't go back into that too much, but I want you to keep that in the back of your mind, because it will be relative as you start to work with your clients with this work. We're going to be thinking about the relationship between these elements. So when we start to apply 5-element work to our practice, it's really about thinking about things in systems and starting to think about the way that things relate to each other. So where you might have been maybe focused on digestion, let's say as an issue for one of your clients, you're going to start to, and you might already be doing this, and probably you are, but like this is, kind of the basics of 5-element work, is like you're going to start to think about digestion being something that has a tie-in to earth energy. And so if you know that you've got a disruption in digestion, then you probably have a disruption in earth energy, and you're going to start to think about that element in relationship to the other elements and what might be showing, what might be, what might also need to be harmonized instead of just focusing on digestion. You might have to, and this is kind of what we're going to talk about from now on, you might have to do some work with wood because wood controls the stomach. So if it's not strong enough to control the stomach can get over energy. If it's too strong, it can, so if wood gets too strong, it can suppress earth energy. But if it's not strong enough, it can't control earth. And so you might, when earth is too big, you might need to deal with the earth energy being over energy and deal with digestion, but you might also need to support one of the other elements. In this case, in this example, I was talking about wood. So if wood had enough energy to control earth, that could be helpful. And then looking at the wood element and what might be going on for them with their wood, right? So, and that's what we're gonna, for the rest of this master class, we're gonna just kind of talk about those relationships so that you start to get them a feel for them. Obviously, I do not expect by the end of this master class that you have mastered 5 elements work. It is complicated. There's a lot to it when you look at, I mean, Chinese medicine, people go to acupuncture school for 4 years, you know, or beyond, depending on, well, they can do it in less, but you know, like it takes years of practice and then years of looking at your clients before they, oh, will you guys make sure you're all on mute? I forgot to say that at the beginning. So just recognize, like, this is the first pass, right? And so the class, the actual class NeuroCohesion, and there's levels of that, go into much more depth of this, and those will be offered through IHA. But for now, I want you to just start to really have this basis for you to work from. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about when you're working with an element on the genius. So there's a couple different things I want you to think about. You can work with it in a couple different ways. One way could be that you get your genius loaded with their picture and their voice. And then from that, when you get the libraries, and those libraries are coming, I just want to say, I've had a turnover in some admin support. So they did not go out. And the new admin is getting close to having it ready to go out, and she's going to work on it over this weekend. So hopefully by the end of this weekend, you will have your library so that you can start playing. But I'm going to show you today how you can start playing even without the libraries. But if you have the libraries, and those libraries will basically be, there's a fire, an earth, a metal, a water, and a wood, right? And so you're going to run the genius. You're going to identify which element you're going to be working with. We'll talk about how to identify that in a minute. And then once you know what element you want to work with, what's going on for that person, then you're going to start to think about what the element is, what it represents. You're going to look at your handouts, and you're going to go to that element. You're going to kind of get a sense of what's going on with that and how that relates to what's going on with your client, how that element might be showing up in relationship to other elements. We're going to talk about that more too. And then if you know something and you have other libraries and you want to pull in additional resources, then you're going to do that, right? So it's like, and you'll see in your handouts that I put like a mini genius protocol for each element in your handouts. And so it's like, the quick thing is to do this. And we're going to talk about how you can build from that and add to it based on your own skill sets or what you might already know, or other people's libraries and things like that, right? So that's one way, is to run the genius and let the genius tell you what element you need to work with. The other way is more of an intuitive process. It's more of a listening to your clients. It takes a little more listening skill as a practitioner for what might be out of balance for them. It takes kind of knowing the 5 elements a little bit more in your own system, so that when your client starts talking about what is frustrating them or what the problem is, you can start to sense like, that sounds like that. Like, so for example, if they're experiencing a lot of grief, or they've just had a loss of some sort and they're really struggling and they're feeling really disconnected and sad, and then you're going to be working with metal. And in that situation, I just want to say, you're not trying to get rid of an emotion. Like, we're not trying to fix somebody's problem. We're trying to support their energetic system so that they can find the most harmonious way through it, whatever that is for them at this time. So if somebody has lost, you're not trying to not have them grieve. We want to have the emotion, but we want to support their 5 elements so that they can grieve with grace. So what metal energy allows us to do is to hold this this higher vibration of grace while we grieve, right? So that's what we're doing. So if somebody's angry, which tends to be kind of a wood emotion, you're not trying to get rid of their anger. You're trying to, what we try and push away, what we resist persists, right? So it's like, we're not trying to say your anger is wrong and let's balance it. We're trying to say, why are you angry? What's that anger coming from? And how can we help you harmonize your system so that you can find balance and move forward? Anger often comes as either a result of a fight or flight response, right? The fight response in flight, or something being fairly misaligned, and they're not feeling like they can really live what they want, what their soul wants, or it's not necessarily what their ego wants, but anger is usually a result of something feeling out of harmony, right? Think about the anger that comes from something feeling not just, like injustice, right? That's not harmony, that there's not balance there, and it creates an anger. So you're not trying to say the anger is wrong. You're trying to say, how do we support the 5 elements so that you can move that anger into fire, which is where it should go. It should become a passion. It should become a motivation. So in that situation, you're starting to think like, okay, so there's anger here. This thing was really, this really powerful thing happened. They're really mad about it. Is it something that needs to be transmuted into a passion? Like you really believe that this is unjust and you're passionate about helping people transmute that. So we're going to take them out of anger and into fire. And so we'll learn how to help them move in that direction. Or anger could be masking something that is like they're feeling like a victim to something, like something that's happened to them that they're really mad about, and they're still in a victim place around it. There's nothing wrong with that. We have to move through all those things in our own time and in our own way. But then we want to look at the relationship between anger and metal, which is that there's this, when metal gets out of balance, we can feel like the world is happening to us, not through us or with us, right? So it's like we can get into that victim mindset where everyone else is treating us in a certain way, and we need the outside world to change so that we feel better. So we're going to look at the relationship between wood and metal. So I know that that's kind of a little bit complicated, because 5 elements is it's connections, right? It's starting to look at the connections and thinking about, why am I here and what does it mean? Why is it earth energy? Why is it wood energy? Why is it fire energy? And what does it mean? And how does that connect to other things? And that's fairly complicated. I'm trying to give you some quick examples, and it will certainly help as we go through more of the demos. But it's more about your explanation or your exploration of what these things can mean in relationship to each other. All right, so the other way that you can work, so like I was talking about, is by element, right? And so in this case, so I want to just kind of like, let's say you had a client that came in and they were definitely in a state of dysregulated fight or flight response. And you hear the fear. So when the water is out of balance, if you look into your packets and you look at the creator, so look, these packets came from my work, which is, I call the elements archetypes. And so it's the creator archetype that you're working with, which is the water element. But you're going to start to think about, okay, so I know that they're in a state of fear, that I can feel that that's what's really there. And I know that because in my workout, in my workbook, I can see that there's some fear. Like I see the emotions. There's fear and anxiety and panic there. And I can see that they're out of balance because on this sheet it says out of balance. They're not sleeping enough. Sleep is a not sleeping is a good indicator of a water imbalance, and it's a water to fire. And well, it's water to all the elements, but maybe they're tending to isolate or closing themselves off or becoming forgetful and misplacing things, or the hardening at the physical, emotional, and mental levels is like they're tightening up, right? And so you're hearing some things that they're talking about that are telling you like, oh, I think I hear that the water element is out of balance. And I know that because at the archetypal level of water represents our ability to be with source energy. And so Chinese medicine is based on the Tao. And so there's a spiritual aspect to the Chinese tradition, that is that there is this energy, this all one energy, the spiritual energy called the Tao, and it flows through our lives. We might know that energy as source or universal love. We might have other words for it, right? But ultimately it is about your ability to know that there is something bigger than yourself. There's an energy that your highest self is connected to. And then that might just be the light of the universe. So from quantum physics, we would just say it's light particles, right? It's dark matter. It's all the things. And so it's like, it's the light of my heart is animating this physical body. And our ability to get bigger than our physical body, get bigger than our own perspective, get curious with what's happening instead of like hardening down and being like, oh, this problem I have, this fear I have, that's freezing me up. So if you think about water, it's about the ability to connect to source and move energy, move the emotion. So like if you think about water and nature, remember 5 elements is based on observations in nature. Water could get dried out. It could get frozen in fear. It could flow too much emotion, nothing to contain it, right? So it's like, if somebody is deeply emotional and is having a hard time containing their own emotions, then there's probably a water imbalance. If somebody is not emotional and they're frozen in a way, like they can't move the emotion, it's deep and they don't have access to it very easily, and so it's frozen in their body, then that is also a water imbalance, right? So I want you to start to think about like, what is the archetype of each element? And then how does that show when someone is sitting in front of me and saying, this is my problem? So I went through and I added water to this slide deck so that we could kind of talk about, so that we could just kind of talk through one of the elements. From here, we'll go through them a little bit faster for the next couple master classes so that we can also be doing the demos. But I do want to kind of go through them quickly. So I'm going to spend a little more time on water because it's the first one, and then we'll go through the others more quickly because you'll have a sense of what I'm already talking about, and you'll have worked with your workbook and you'll be starting to play with it with your genius, right? So we know that the water element is associated with safety, the idea that someone feels safe. So you, off the bat, if someone isn't feeling very safe, you know that you might need to be working with water. They're asking the question, am I safe? Or is this safe? Or you might hear them talk about safety in a way. They tend to, when the water's out of balance, they tend to be pre-worried about the future. They're thinking forward in a way of like what could go wrong, right? And so, and they might have a fear of that, or they might have anxiety about that. They might have some panic about that. They also might have some things going on from the past that make them think that could happen in the future, right? So you've got this time element. When water is in harmony, we're in flow with creator. So it's really the energy of trust and surrender, that all is well, everything is happening in divine timing, in divine order, and I can surrender to that. And anywhere where I'm trying to take control from fear, we've got water issues, right? So water teaches us to pause and reflect, to take time to make our decisions, to think it through, to not be, I don't like the word impulsive because I think it gets used to lock people in a way of being, but it does keep us from making those kind of quick decisions that might need a little more connection to source, where it's our ability to not be reactive and to be responsive. And that is the harmony between my ability to be in my prefrontal cortex and making executive decisions versus being in my, what we call the basement brain, making fear-driven decisions, right? So it's the neurology of the fear pathway. When we get into the actual NeuroCohesion classes, we get into the neurology of the different pathways. We get into this stuff much deeper, but I want you to think about, we've got an activated brainstem, we've got activated reactivity, right? And so it teaches us how to like get into the present moment and to be able to get bigger and curious, get bigger than our problem, get bigger than our fear, and get curious about it. Okay. So I already said this, it really represents the flow of emotion. When emotions should be flowing smoothly. They rise, they fall, they disappear. You want them to move with nature, right? Like, and with the movement of water, you can navigate different obstacles in your life, flow through unhindered, right? But there's times when it can't. So that's when fear is like maybe blocking it or paralyzing you, or maybe again, like it can be too much, well up and overwhelm. So all the ways that you can think about water and nature. The two meridians that are associated with the water element are the kidneys and the bladder. So we're also looking at the sacral chakra. And the kidneys are the controller of water. So they oversee those bodily fluids. And this is significant, right? Because we are mostly water as human beings. And we know that the water can be programmed. We know that water can be, that we can harmonize water, right? So it's like thinking about that same kind of concept in the human being that you're working with. Is like, how do we harmonize that human to source energy so that they have what it takes to navigate this obstacle in their life, this frustration. So from a physical perspective, all the things that you can think of with water, like too much water, retaining fluids, like urinary tract or urinary issues in general, like all of those things are connected. It also, I think, says that it has some of that, I think, in your, it might not have some of that because that might be more in the longer workbooks, but your kidney energy also is the seat of your vital energy. So your vital essence that you're born with, they in Chinese medicine, they believe that you're born with like a reservoir of vital energy, pure essence. And that throughout your life, the goal is to protect that vital well. You can't create more of that, but you can do all sorts of things to keep everything in harmony so that you're not pulling on that reservoir to do in life, right? So it's like, that's the point of Qigong and taking care of your body and meditation. All of those things help you to find other chi reserves, not pulling on this vital essence that your kidneys store. When your kidneys start to pull on that vital essence, that's when you start to have adrenal issues. And then you can see the long-term effect of an adrenal issue, as we know, becomes too much cortisol, not enough cortisol, which has a connection to everything else going on in the body, right? So it's like, when we, when there's good flow of water energy, then we go through the cycles of life with ease, right? And it kind of governs that growth to puberty, to menopause. And so all of those things need this yin energy that is in the kidneys in order to soften all of that. So we need cortisol and the relationship between water and wood to navigate these big changes, puberty and emotions and menopause and things like that. And when we go through life and we're taking care of ourselves, then those things, we flow through them. It's not that they're easy all the time, but we flow through them, right? We have what it takes. So, and then when we pull on that reserve, then that's when we see stress-related illness and we see things like premature aging. And so water's also associated with our divine willpower, I say, because it's instinctual will. It's not necessarily our ego will. And our instinctual drive, not necessarily our egoic drive. And then it feeds ambition. What am I here to do? It feeds wood in the sense of saying, from source, when I'm connected to source, what is my divine purpose? And how do I live that? Sends the energy to wood, which we'll talk about. So when it's balanced, we can focus our minds and our energies towards achieving. We focus it towards wood. How do I live my life purpose? How do I live this connection to source? It's also got the bladder energy. So the bladder energy runs along the spine. And so, and down the legs. And so we think of it, so the bladder kind of disperses this vital energy or this chi as necessary. So it's the backbone we need to show up, to do, right? The bladder is gives that energy to do the next thing, to show up for it. And so we actually use those bladder points, get used quite a bit for like acute, to reharmonize acute issues, kind of getting you back in line with spinal energy, right? So so think about things that are like when you're fearful, like feeling spineless or no backbone, right? Those are bladder indicators. So like I said, when in your workbook, I won't go through all of these, but in your workbook, you can see that when it's in balance, you're able to stay curious, seek a deeper meaning for what's going on, not go into victim mindset around like, oh, this is happening to me, instead of it's happening with me or through me. You can get too much in your imagination, too much in your emotional state, too much in fantasy land. So like in balance, this lets you stay in wonder and imagination without getting lost in it, without getting just lost in that dream state. It helps us to pay attention to our inner wisdom. It helps us to stay centered and not be reactive. It helps us to find joy and contentment. It helps us to stay curious. And then obviously to drink enough water and get good sleep. So, and then out of balance, not enough sleep. We tend to not have enough water, living in that fantasy mind, becoming forgetful, isolating, losing track of time, hardening, like I was saying, hardening at that physical, emotional, mental levels might mean like hardening of the arteries. It might mean like hardening of the emotions, not allowing, right? So fear, panic, dread, depression, and hopelessness are all emotions that are associated with a water issue. Okay, so I'm gonna stop that screen. So I want to do a quick demo. Oh, look, I did so good. I gave myself 30 minutes to do that part, and it's exactly 30 minutes. I did a good job. Okay, so what we want to do then is we want to look on the Genius how to work with water. Now, like I said, there are a couple different, once you have the libraries, we'll do demos more from this other perspective, which is like letting the Genius kind of guide where you need to go, because that's a beautiful way to let the Genius show us what's going on in someone's energy field. But in today's demo, we're going to look at it from the perspective of water. Like we're kind of going in saying, I want to work with water. And so this is what I'm going to do. So the next step in my beautiful, I'm going to share my screen so that we can see my Genius, but like, technology, y'all, this is not always my strong suit. So for the water balance, is there anyone that wants to volunteer? I'm happy to work. If somebody has something that they want to work on and that they think that they might have some fear around it, we can work on it. And if not, I can just pull my demo and we can just work through something. But I want to just open it in case somebody does want. Cece says, all right. So Cece, will you hop out for me? And let's,
I'll hop up.
so let me get you loaded into my Genius.
Does this get published on YouTube?
Yeah. Well, actually,
I can send you my credentials privately though. I just don't like doing it on.
Yeah, totally. And also, Connie, do you know if we can cut it out? I don't, yeah. So, Cece, I'm going to give you email.
think
If
so.
you'll email me your stuff.
I'll just send it to you right through your private message, a
Oh,
direct.
okay, great, great.
And what else do you need?
I think that's it.
Okay. You need full name?
I can do just your first name, but if you want to put your last name in there, that's helpful.
It's different than what's on the,
Oh, okay, then yes.
yeah.
Oh. Let's try that again. Okay, and then if you will, just please on the count of three, you can do your AEIOUs, and then we'll talk a little bit. So when you're ready, in 3, 2, 1, go.
A-E-I-O-U, 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 A, and there we go.
I love my genius people because they know exactly how long 15 seconds is. They're like, yeah, I know exactly how many times I need to say it. Okay. And then would you like to skip the picture or do you want me to get your picture?
I'll skip the picture.
Okay.
Quantum knows what I look like.
Quantum knows everything it needs to know. Okay. So we'll give that a second. It's going to take a second to load up. So while it's loading, do you go by Cece or Cindy? Okay. So I'm going to, so just correct me if I'm using the wrong name, but I'm going to say Cindy because that's what you typed in for me. But if you prefer to go by Cece, let me know. So I'm gonna share my screen and Cindy, if you'll stay unmuted for a minute, I want to talk a little bit before we get in there. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on.
If it doesn't make a difference, I'd rather just go by Cece for this.
Okay, great. Then I can do that. So,
Okay.
so one of the things that I like to do when I am working with people is I like to have interactive sessions. And we don't have to have a deep interactive session today, but I like to get a sense of what someone is working with. Because in my world and what we teach in NeuroCohesion is how to do the alchemical process, which is really how to collect all of the things that are related so that we can get a deeper and more permanent harmonizing of what's going on. So tell me a little bit about for today, like it doesn't have to be your deepest and darkest fear, but something that made you want to volunteer for today for the water, something that's been maybe a challenge for you. Tell me what's going on.
Okay, first of all, I feel very emotional.
Oh.
But what my fear is that I will get dementia like my mom.
Okay, so that's a big one.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I've been helping with them take care of her, but I'm a lot like her, so it's like that's a concern. And yeah.
Yeah, so I always like to just start by arriving with that. So if everybody will, as we're doing the demo, I like for everybody to just take a moment and just get grounded, because as the people on this video with us, you're helping to hold the container to help amplify and move and heal. You're involved, whether or not you think you are. So I would like for everybody to take a second and just put your feet on the ground And if it feels good, you can close your eyes for a minute. And I just want you to ground. I just want you to visualize your feet on the ground, feel your energy begin to drop into your feet, feeling those roots begin to grow from your feet into the ground and just rooting you into this present moment, connecting you into the earth, giving you a place to regulate your nervous system, dropping any additional information, dropping any of your own narrative, any of your own story. And just from Earth is our energy that feels connection. It's really the heart of Earth energy. So from those roots, begin to see, sense, or feel that our roots are entangling with each other, creating a really deep connection and a place for us to be supported and to support. And then allow that energy of the roots to move all the way to the center of the earth and feel that there's a warm nectar of pure nourishment that is earth energy. And just feel that pulling up through the root system, up through your own feet, up through your own tailbone, through your own root chakra, into the lower belly, the pelvic floor, opening up the sacral chakra. Feel it ground in the belly, the solar plexus. And then feel this gentle pull from the heart, this connection between the heart and the center of the earth, letting your heart open. And then going up to the top of your head, really beginning to open the crown chakra, connecting into that greater source energy, that higher self energy. In Chinese tradition, we call this Shen energy. And so you're going to feel this heavenly energy begin to pull down through the crown chakra, through the third eye, through the ajna, through the throat, and then settling in the heart, where you feel them meet. And then with the next couple breaths, just feel that all of that energy going up and down the spine, like a spinal wash. Allow it to open the heart space and arrive. And so if you're someone who is on this call, who is not the volunteer, then you're going to stay in this. You can keep your eyes open at this point, but I want you to stay really rooted and connected to Cece, because you're part of Cece's healing journey, right? So Cece, I'm going to go ahead and I want to just talk a little bit about when you feel into this fear around dementia in general. How do you know you have a fear around it? Where do you feel it in your body?
Oh boy. I think it's more in my head,
Okay. So
in the back of my neck. It feels like that. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. So I'm just going to point out, because we're doing a demo, if somebody can't name where it is in their body, it is because it's probably frozen, right? Like, I want you to think about fear as frozen, feeling numb or nothing. I can't feel it in my body. And when that happens, they feel it in thoughts. They feel it in their mental field. They go up into their head. And because it's hard to find where it is in the body, and that's fine. That's not wrong. It's just understanding that that's. So I want you to take a second from there, Cece, and I just want you to breathe, and I want you to connect to that light in your heart, connect to that, whatever it is for you that you call that energy that is your higher self. And just breathe with it. Just stay with that light source in your heart. And we do this, y'all, because when you have them connect to their source energy, before you start packing these big fears, they need a resource, an internal resource to go to for it to feel safe, right? So you don't want to start unpacking somebody's stuff without giving them an internal resource. So just breathing in and out of that heart space, I want you to start to tell me, what are the thoughts that come up when you think about this fear of the future? What is the narrative that starts to come up in your head?
It's mainly that there'll be nobody to take care of me,
Okay.
and that I won't be able to take care of myself.
Yeah. I'm taking notes so that I can make sure that I get all the things. What else comes up in your thoughts? I think that's probably not the only thing. Those are also, you can see how those point to other fears, like the fear of not being supported, the fear of not being taken care of. And some of that might be very logical and some of it might be illogical. It doesn't matter, right? We're going to work with all the fear, but I'm already noticing that there's other fear there, right? So Cece, tell me a little bit more about the thoughts that come up. And I just want you to name, like, there's probably more worry than just no one to take care of me. It might tell me, like, when you start to think that thought, what else starts to come up around it?
Well, that I won't have any control of myself. Somebody will hurt me. Yeah, I'm really vulnerable.
Yeah.
I just really realize how vulnerable my mother is,
Yeah.
And if there was people around that didn't care about her, it would be awful.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just take a breath there. Let everybody take a collective breath. So when we're working with an element, we're kind of collecting all of the different aspects, right? We're asking these questions. So I'm asking what kind of stress that causes. I want you to think, we can kind of lay this out. Like, we started with taking a breath, but then we're naming the frustration. What is the fear? And then we're saying, what kind of stress does that fear create for me? And we can usually find the stress by naming what the story is. Like, where am I going when I'm getting in my emotions around it? What is my head doing? What is the doubt? What is the worry? What am I chewing on around it? That's all that earth energy, right? And then eventually people might have much more than that, right? But then they're going to start to name these, like, deeper core beliefs, these deeper fears, this deeper grief. You can already feel how she's kind of touched on all 5 elements, right? There's a deep grief of being alone and vulnerable, and there are some core beliefs that she'll be, that there's no one there to take care of her, and that she'll lose control of herself, right? There's these, like, and again, there's some real rational justification behind that. We don't want to just go over that. There are people having that very real experience, right? So we want to make space for that to be an experience. And we want to get bigger than that one experience, right? So I'm going to now try and do the technology part where I share my screen. And we're going to see how all of that goes, but now we're going to move to the genius. And we're going to look at water. Hopefully, if all the parts do what they're supposed to do. Oh. Okay. All right, here we go. So can you all see the Genius screen?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, V. I'm like, I'm gonna assume you can. So all right, so from this screen, we're looking at the basic screen that is our basic Genius, right? So I want to start here with some of the things that we can load for CC just from this screen, right? So I always, and I think you guys probably all have your own version, but I always kind of start with some primer things. We might just add those in for today so that we're kind of running it, but you always kind of want to get a sense of their spinal energy. And I like to run, Denise and the Bioterrain has a great priming vessel. If you have those libraries, priming vessels, if you have NeuroCohesion, you're going to get the whole thing that you do first. But I like to add the highs and lows of the vitamins I'm going to the quick zap tray. So I like to get the vitamins and the minerals. And what we're going to say to the body is, I'm just adding highs and lows, amino acids. And we're just going to say, body, I'm getting ready to do some energy work, and I want you to be really supported and feeling really juicy and ready to receive. So I'm also going to put in the spinal energy. Oops. We're going to go ahead and add the top 3 Bach flowers up here. So already that star Bethlehem is right in the top. So we know that there's some stress there, right? So I'm going to pull in the bladder meridian and the kidney meridian, because those are going to make up the water. I might look to see what else is going on there, but until it's more complicated to figure out the relationship between the meridians and the element than just what shows on that screen. There's a both and. You can look at the archetype of the element, and you can look at the archetypes of the different meridians. And sometimes it'll match up, that you've got the two meridians that are out of balance match one of the elements, but that's rare. Actually, it might not line up like that. And then I always like to pull in that 528. So this is kind of, there's much more that you can do as a primer, right? Like, but I like to just, even for a minute before I start anything else, just to run that. And I don't know if it'll let me talk over it. So I'll try and turn that down. Can you all still hear me if that's turned down? So what we're saying by pulling those things in is, okay, I'm priming the system and saying I'm getting ready to do some energy work. And so I want my physical and emotional and mental body to be on board with that, right? So and then we're going to go start to look at what's going on more in the water. Now, if you just look at your protocol, like if you just want to balance the water, then in your workbook, it says that you're going to add highs and lows from the water element when you get it. You're going to add the highs and lows from spinal energy. You're going to add the top 3 Bach flower essences. You're going to add the kidney and the bladder. You're going to add the sacral chakra, the highs and lows of the self-edgiotones, and 528. So that's what you would put in your bottom tray, right? So, oops, I hit that. Sorry. We'll just wait for it there. We'll wait for it. All right. So in the bottom tray, I'm putting the highs and lows of my self-edgiotones, and 528 happens to be one of them. I'm putting the sacral chakra. I am putting the kidney and the bladder. If it'll let me. I'm going to put the top 3 Bach flower essences. And the highs and lows from the spinal energy. Okay, so you can just start with that. If you don't have the water element, then just that alone, and your intention is saying, I'm going to harmonize the water in this way. but we have access to more information. So I'm going to go into my libraries and I'm going to add a master branch because that's what y'all will be getting. And you guys are getting the 5 elements of motion. And then we're going to go back. We're going to go to those libraries. Okay. Now, what we can see is that water is at the top and it is in red. So we would want to be working with water anyway, right? Like, and it's because that's what we were bringing up. Sometimes it will not match. Sometimes we'll be wanting to work with the anger, but that's not what shows in the element. So just know that today it's matching. It doesn't always match like that. So we're going to go into that water. And then I'm going to add the highs and lows because that's what your protocol tells you to do. But then I'm going to just see what's here, right? And so this whole panel is built from emotions that are associated with the different meridians and just things that I knew that are quick or things that need to be looked at for water element, right? So you'll see all of the different, like kidney anxiety, for example, like that's an emotion that's associated with kidney disruptions. Restlessness is one that's associated with the bladder, right? So you'll see as you go through here, there's just the neuroemotional pathway of fear, because we are looking at the fear pathway from an emotional standpoint, but at the mental level. And so you just see that that's a combination. It's also got some homeopathics in there. Genmo is one of the, that's one of the extraordinary meridian points. You'll see that there's also some, well, those are all homeopathics. So you'll just see that this is kind of a basic. So when we do NeuroCohesion, when you do the actual class, it's many, many libraries. It's more, but this is a really great, and I used it for years before I created NeuroCohesion. This is a really great combination of things to help you harmonize the element itself. There's things in here to help you harmonize the element. So in this case, I don't know if I already did it, but we're going to add the highs and lows, and then I'm just going to look to see. So I always want to look at the top first, kind of see what's most acute. That's probably the thing that's most activated by what we've been talking about, which the kidney is associated with the lower back, right? So when we see water imbalances, we also tend to see lower back issues or even leg issues. But the first emotion up there is dread, right? And that is what CC's pointed to, right? Like there's a dread about the future that's creating fear and it's creating panic. And we can see how there'd be disruptions to feeling resourceful because there's this big looming fear, this future forward fear. So I always like to just kind of to look and see what's there. And if it's bringing up something that we haven't really talked about, to kind of look at that, to be curious about it. Like, oh, I wonder why this is up, but in this case, it kind of matches pretty much what CC was talking about, right? That there is this kind of the thoughts that she's having were about like this fear and this panic about the future, losing control of herself, not having the right resources, right? So it's like, and then feeling really vulnerable from that. And vulnerability is when we're feeling really vulnerable and we're not safe, it's going to drive fear and panic, right? Like they're protector parts of vulnerability. And so I tend to run my Genius on dynamic mirroring. So I like to have those things going on in the top tray in relationship to the things that we've put in the bottom tray. I'm going to do that in just a second. But before I get that going, I just want to come back, Cece, I want to come back to you for a minute. And I just want to acknowledge, like, one, we're moving some energy around this very deep fear. So I want you to come back, everybody, just come back into your heart space, come back into this. We're doing kind of a session, but we're also holding space for somebody. So we want to come back into this moment. And then Cece, I want you to just bring all of that fear and that worry and just bring it to that light of your heart. And just finding that source of light that is infinite, that is much bigger than you, your higher self, who knows and guides the life plan, that has a deeper wisdom than your mind can have, and is in an excellent place to help us resource, to find the source energy that we need. And just pull in the part that has a real practicality about this fear. Just pull that part of you into the light and just really wrap it in love and compassion. Of course, you have a part that is terrified about this being the outcome. Of course you do. And of course, it might have parts that are busy trying to control your life so that you don't end up in the same situation. So don't resist that energy. Just pull it in. Just say, yes, of course I do. And hold it in love and compassion. And then find a place that feels resourceful and knows that you also have tool sets and you have ways to navigate that are different than maybe your mom did. And just feel that resourceful part of yourself, that place where you're like, wait, I know a thing. I know about ways that I can be preventative. I know about ways that I can take action that feel healthy and in alignment, not through control. And then feel the part that's just really afraid to end up with dementia and just wrap her in love. Of course she's afraid. It's a scary thing. And just allow that fear to meet the love in your heart. Just allow them to be together. And then just allow that higher self to really wrap itself around this deep and intimate and vulnerable fear. And that it's through this connection that you can surrender that fear. It will be what it will be. And also, the more you can connect to this place, the more resourceful you can be. And just breathe. And while you breathe, while everyone breathes, I'm going to set this up so that it's going to run in a dynamic mirroring. I know it's 2:00, so if you need to hop off, you can. I'm going to just get to this dynamic mirroring part. So for me, for this particular one, I'm going to leave the main tray on 6 minutes. And I don't think I have too much in there, so I'm going to have them all run. And then I'm going to go out and go into my extra modules and dynamic mirroring, and we're going to name this harmonizing water. And then we're going to just run that for, well, I'm just going to put it on for 30 minutes, just knowing, Cece, that even when we hop off, it's going to keep running, right? So obviously, I could run it for a minute or two and we could just see what the results are, but that's not really helpful in this situation. We've really pulled up a very deep fear. And so I really want to honor that we're going to run this to really help support Cece with this fear about how it's going. Now, what I would love is to just have a check-in, Cece. What are you feeling already? Where are you now with what's going on? Just with the bringing it to your heart, what's there?
Just feeling very grateful, first of all, for you and for this, and I'm trusting. If I can't always feel like I'm bringing it there, I just have to trust that I did that.
Great. So trust is a sign that her water is already harmonizing. Can everybody hear that? Like when we can't trust at all, then the water can't move, right? So it's like, so just finding that space to be grateful that even something is helping, open the heart enough for her to just trust something. She doesn't have to know more than that, right? Like, but I don't want to leave her really dysregulated either, right? Because fear pathways, they shut down or they get the sympathetic nervous system really out of balance, right? And what we're doing when we're harmonizing water often is we're bringing her back to center so that she can get out of that reactive mode and stay responsive, stay in her present moment. When she starts to go to the future, she gets out of the present moment, right? So that gratitude brought her back into her heart. And that's a really big step. This is why I do interactive sessions, because it's also about helping people to resource themselves. And then we add the genius on top of it. Then we add the tool, whatever tool you're using, we use it on top of it so that we're not reliant on a technology. We're not reliant on a tool, that we're reliant on our source. And that you as a practitioner are here to walk beside someone in their healing journey. It's not a hierarchy. You're not here to fix people. You have a tool that is part of their healing journey, but they also, alchemical work helps people be with these deeper things, right? And that's why so we can, if we don't like to work like that, we can just acknowledge that there's a fear and harmonize water, and we can send an export for water, and we can just keep supporting that water. And that is helpful, right? That's going to do restorative work. But the more that Cece can bring the fear of the future back into this present moment, the less likely the fear is to create a situation that she then has to deal with, to manifest the dread, right? Because if you have a fear that's running in the background, then you have something that's focused on that fear all the time. And so the goal then is to bring it back to the heart, bring it back to the place where it can really be brought back into harmony, which is the heart is what's doing that, right? When we are able to help someone regulate or heal in any way, it's our hearts talking to each other. And so it's our higher selves supporting each other. And so that's what we're doing now, is we're just all holding Cece and we're amplifying. So when a group comes together and they focus on an intention, they amplify that energy. So for the next 1 minute, I want everyone to put your hands on your heart. I want you to close your eyes. I want you to find your breath. And I want you to just hold love and direct it towards Cece for the next 1 minute. So everybody close your eyes if that feels good. If not, you can just soften your gaze. I like to put my hands on my heart so I can really connect. And together as a group, we are helping, we are healing, we are holding in community. And we're holding all of the parts for Cece, the part that's terribly scared, and the part that wants to manage it, and the part that's afraid, and the part that's panicked, and the part that has dread and anxiety. And we hold all of it in love and compassion. And we amplify this healing for Cece as much as karmic law will say will allow at this time. And while we hold this energy, we help to harmonize all 5 elements so that Cece knows her own vision and her own self and what she needs. And that she knows how to stay in a state of inspired joy and compassion and hope and inspiration. And so it is. And so now I want everyone to take a moment to softly open your eyes, come back to the present moment. And then you can do whatever ritual you have for, I call it letting go of our energetic hand holding. So sometimes I just swipe through all of my chakra centers and I just open up and I just release the hand holding back so that the group detangles so that you're not staying connected to anyone energetically. Just visualize your energy coming back into your own self, shaking off whatever is there. If you need to take a big breath and just release. And then I appreciate that everybody that could stayed, that we held this space, and we really honor the sacred nature of being able to hold someone on their journey, to be able to do this work with people, right? It's a very sacred thing that we get to do. And Cece, thank you so much for being brave and bringing your fear to this moment, because it's, if you didn't, then we wouldn't be able to, one, share it with you, but two, we wouldn't be able to help hold it with you. And it wouldn't have been as good of a demo, because then we're just working with fake things instead of real things. So just taking a second, and Cece, just checking back in and making sure that you feel centered and in your body before we just cut it off.
Well, I actually do feel much better, and I just want to thank everyone from the fullness of my heart. So thank you for helping me.
Yes. Yes. And acknowledging. So Cece, then we just acknowledge, like, this is a really real and valid fear. And the tendency is to want to try and escape the fear, but you're doing such a good job by allowing that emotion to be real and present with you. So as much as you can over the next several weeks, bringing that fear back into your heart, just keep bringing it back to the light of your heart and letting your higher self deal with it, right? Letting your higher self hold it in compassion. And
Yeah.
definitely check back in with me. You guys have my emails. Check back in with me and let me know how things are going.
I just had a question. Where will
Sure.
these libraries, where will we get these your libraries from, and how much will they cost? What is the cost for them?
Yeah. So the libraries are free. The ones that we're sending, they were supposed to go out last week, but one of my admins that was doing it quit. So I didn't get them out in time. I'm sorry that I'm frozen. My whole thing is frozen. But so I have a different admin that's going to be working on it this weekend. So hopefully you guys will all have your libraries by the end of the weekend. And I'm sorry for the delay.
They'll just be emailed out then, or?
Yeah, they'll come through the Genius. Well, I have what? Oh, Connie, the email they registered with may not be their Genius email. So I have the list of everyone that registered. So what I do need is if the email that you're registering for the Zoom is not the same one as your Genius email, I do need you to send that to me so that I can make sure I'm sending it to you.
Yeah, mine is different.
Okay, she can let one of us know. I'll try to assist and help however.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're frozen, Laura. Oh no. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I think Laura's frozen, so I'm just going to end it for her. If anyone has any questions, just email Connie at Insight Health Apps, and I'll help her get all these libraries and the PDF sent. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Well,